The house that we find ourselves in now was commissioned by Frederic Lord Leighton, the Victorian painter. Leighton travelled to Egypt, Turkey and finally to Syria. He built the Arab Hall in 1877 on his return. In the mid-19th century, there was a real strength of interest in the Islamic world and the art that came from it. And this house is therefore a very apt place to be discussing this Mamluk basin and the Islamic revival version that we have that sits so well alongside it. The Mamluks were a dynasty who ruled over Egypt and Syria from about 1250 to 1517, and I think it in some ways is really seen as the high point of the Islamic period in Egypt, during which some of the most impressive objects were commissioned and some of the most important monuments were built. The surfaces of this bowl are decorated with this very strong cursive calligraphy, which in the Arabic world is known as thuluth. And it's a type of calligraphy that you see decorating a lot of Mamluk objects and monuments. It would originally have been silver-inlaid, though a lot of the silver has now been taken out and probably reused at some point during its history because of its intrinsic value. The figural decoration here is alternated with these really strong roundels. So you have sort of people hunting, people falconing, all the pursuits of the sultans. Roundels such as that were really popular in the metalwork of Mosul, and that really sort of informed metalwork of the early Mamluk period. It in fact became slightly unfashionable soon after this bowl was made, and so this piece, which combines the figural tradition with the more forward-looking calligraphic tradition, is really therefore a very interesting transition piece.
So this basin is a Mamluk revival basin, since it copies almost exactly a Mamluk basin from the 14th century. It is revival, but it goes further in its exploration of the techniques. It was probably made in France between 1860 and 1880 by a maker called Eugène Collineau. What I find fascinating about this piece is that it is almost a direct copy of a 14th century Mamluk basin. It's got the shape, it's got the calligraphy and the figural decoration, yet it has very little to do with the Mamluk metalwork. Very few or no Mamluk basin made of pottery. Eugène Collineau, who made this basin, is very well known for his enameling of his ceramics, and he actually patented his technique, I think in the early 1860s. And you can see he's known for the way he separates enamels on the surface. So you can see how the yellow doesn't mix with the turquoise, doesn't mix with the cobalt blue, and doesn't mix with the red. What I find very interesting on this basin is that the inscription around the sides is legible. It is a proper Arabic inscription. It's not as flowing as a 14th century inscription, but you can read all the words. The inscription around the sides actually give titles of a sultan or a prince, and it says the worldly, the exalted, the master. So it says how sort of close they were to the original pieces without copying directly, and again elaborating on the existing techniques.